We're live. Welcome, folks, to AGH at Home. My name is Tyler, and this is Workshop Wednesday. I'm going to give us a couple of minutes to all get settled and also make sure that our video and audio is all working. This is our first time trying this on YouTube directly. So hopefully it all works out. Yeah, while we're waiting, just a little reminder or a little thing. If you're joining us for the activity for the art today, any of the materials that that you'll need, you can find them in the description below. I think I'm pretty sure I put them all down there. So you can take a look, or you can just ask in the chat. I believe I'll be able to see everything. See everything there. I will go through all the things that we're going to need, and hopefully we'll have a good time. Also, if you're here just to, just for a relaxing half hour or so, just to kind of watch, that's totally fine too. You don't have to make something. You can just kind of hang out, spend the afternoon with us, which would be great. So yes, this week we are going to be doing Abstract Collage, and I'm going to sort of slowly go through the items that you're going to need for if you want to participate in today's activity. And then once we have things all gathered, that way if you want to join us and you haven't quite got your things together, you can take a minute and you can kind of go gather up some things, and we can all sort of work at the same similar pace. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to need is something to glue onto. We're going to need, a surface. We're going to need an adhesive or some kind of glue, and then we're going to need some materials to glue to the surface. So I have a couple things here, ranging from, I have some of this canvas board, which is nice. This stuff doesn't bend very much, so that's pretty good. You could just use regular cardboard, which is nice. Depending on what kind of glue you use, sometimes they might kind of like warp a little bit. So if that ever happens, you can maybe double it up, or you can, once it's done, you can just put a book on top of it. That'll flatten it right out. As you can see, I made one earlier this week and it all kind of like dried all crinkly, but if I put a book on top of that, it's going to flatten it right out. What else do I have? Oh, and I have just like some regular cardstock that you can use. You can use printer paper. You can use really anything. You can experiment with a couple of different things. Today, I'm going to use this nice big canvas panel because it's the biggest thing I have. You could even use a piece of wood like this if you wanted to. Really, it's up to you. Now for glue, or for sort of the sticky parts, I have a thing of Mod Podge, which this stuff, I love to use this stuff because you can use a paintbrush to put it on. You can put a little bit on your panel, your board. You can stick your picture on. And then you can paste a little more over top, and at the end it gives a nice sort of shiny kind of seal, which is really neat. You can also use white glue. You can actually kind of recreate this stuff by taking a little bit of white glue and a little bit of water. I'd say maybe like half and half, like half glue, half water. Mix them together. And then you can use that sort of thins out the glue and it gives it a nice consistency like that. What else do I have here? A couple brushes. that I'm going to use for the gluing, some scissors, and some clear tape. I have a roll of packing tape and some regular just clear tape here. This we're going to use to learn how to do a packing tape or like a clear tape transfer. And I'll get into that in a couple of minutes, what that's going to look like. It's a pretty fun technique. So I can't wait to show you that. What else do we have here? I think that's it for those types of materials. It's pretty simple. You don't even really need to use scissors. You know, you can just kind of like fold and tear things. And even if you don't have any glue, but you have the materials, what you can do is you can arrange the things on your board or even on your table and just snap a photo of it. You don't have to glue things down. You can just take a picture of it. And then, you know, you have it there. And the neat thing about that is that you can rearrange all those things and make a whole new collage with the same things, so that you're kind of mixing collage and photography together a little bit, which is kind of cool. So for materials, the things that I'm going to be gluing to my surface, I have mostly paper stuff, but a few others. In this thing here, this is an envelope. I have collected some of I've sort of separated out some of the things that I really like to use, like things that have, like, this is a really nice colored blue, so I'm going to use that. This color, I think, goes nicely with that one. I've also got like small little scraps. So like anything, like when you're collaging, I always have one of these kind of handy so I could just shove things back in there so they're not kind of like all over the place. Sometimes I'll use just like a manila envelope. I've got some cut things from magazines that I've saved that I want to use. You could even use, you know, stuff from boxes. I have a little bit of trace paper, so I'm going to use that. Let's see, what else do I have here? Put those over here. I'm going to tilt my camera down now so that you can see the workspace that we're working on. I've got so you can see I've got my panel here and my scissors, my water cup, my packing tape. I also have some magazines, a couple of magazines here that come in super handy if you want to use those. A lot of times when people think of collage, it's pretty, you know, you might think of cutting and pasting things out of magazines and pasting them on a flat surface, which, you know, you can do, but there's lots of other things to do as well. You can use things like textured things like bubble wrap. I've got some fabric here. There's some felt. Now, when you're using this stuff, you might need to consider what type of glue that you're going to use. You know, you might even want to use wood glue on some of these things. I've also got some string and some thread, so you can use some of that stuff as well. Okay. So here we are to begin. Hopefully we're all sort of here and we're all caught up. I'm going to start working on my my space here. Actually, I'm going to show you a couple examples. We're talking about abstract collage a little bit. And when we're thinking about abstract artwork, we're thinking more about colors and shapes and less about trying to create something that you know, looks like a picture of a horse or something like that, or whatever you would want. I mean, if you want to do that, absolutely, like, go ahead and do that. But I'm going to talk a little bit about, focus more on color and shape today, and you are welcome to do that, or you're welcome to do whatever you like. So here's another example. This one, it's still pretty abstract, even though I've used some photos, cutouts from magazines. So there's another example. I've also used some paper that I've sort of smeared some paint over to get a neat texture. And this one here, you can see that I've used a couple different colors, but all the colors I've used, they're very similar. So I've got very warm colors like this red, this sort of salmon, and some yellow, and they all stand out against this black and that sort of dull white in the background. So that's a few things that I have in there. So as you may have noticed, the color that I've mostly chosen is blue. So I've got lots of blue stuff. I've got some black. I've got gray, a little bit of white, and sort of cream colored. In this folder, I have some paper that has not been used, some big stuff. Sort of kept that separate. So I'm going to do my collage in layers, and I'm going to start with some very, very big stuff. I have a nice big piece here to work with, so I'm going to use some really, really big sheets of paper. So I'm going to start, let's see, with these. Maybe that's kind of big. This is too big. So like I said, you don't need to use scissors. I'm just going to kind of fold that. Fold it again this way. And then I'm going to tear. And if you fold it first, you get a sort of a straight line. You can see it's not entirely straight. But you can also tear, and you can kind of pull it this way or pull it that way, or like completely pull it that way, and you can get like, you know, jaggedy kind of organic lines like that. All right. So I'm going to start with these and maybe a big chunk of something dark now also. I'll use a piece of this. There we go. All right, so I'm starting with nice big stuff. This is going to be my first layer. So what I'm going to do, I've got a lot here. I'm going to kind of rearrange and shuffle these things around until I have something that I am happy with. I'm going to put that aside because it's pretty similar to this one. This one's the biggest, so maybe I'll put that on first. Maybe I'll put this one kind of at an angle like that. Maybe I'll do this one going straight up and down to follow the line of the edge. And this one, maybe I'll sort of slide it under there. So now I've got an angle going that way. I've got a straight line this way and this way. And then, yeah, maybe I don't need this one. Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So I started out with a rectangle with actually 3 rectangles, basically. And now I have all kinds of different shapes that I can work with, right? So I have my rectangle, and this, now my black has turned more into a bit of a square. Even if I push it closer, now it's more of a square. I've got a triangle happening here in the white. I've got kind of a, whatever that would be, irregular kind of trapezoid-ish thing. And I have almost the beginnings of a triangle happening up here as well. So it's neat to, you know, to kind of move things around and see what kind of shapes. Right now I've got a triangle right there. I've got a rectangle-ish thing there. I actually kind of like that, except I'm going to spread those open a little bit. All right, so now once you've decided what you're going to do with this, I'm going to start pasting things down. I'm going to use this stuff, this paste, and a brush, and I'm going to be kind of generous with this, at least to start. So I'm going to put that on. Ooh, that got really chunky. If it's too thick, you can just, you know, add a little bit of water to it, kind of water it down. There we go. And I'm going to put my first piece down. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue over top of it. Now it's going on white, but it will dry all clear. Put a little more under there. And this is the stuff that when it dries not only clear, but also a little bit shiny, which is kind of cool. And now I can see I need a bit more there. So I'm just going to sort of gently peel that back, put some glue there, and I'm going to use the brush to kind of push it down. I could use my hand, but then my hand's going to get all sticky, which is fine because it's actually kind of neat if you know that feeling when you put glue all over your fingers. And what went on? This one. So now, because I've done that, I can just put this right down. Whoop. And it's stuck. I'm gonna still put a little bit over top of there. The nice thing about this stuff going on white and drying clear is that you can see where you have glued pretty well, unless your paper is white. Yeah, that's a little tougher. Water that down a bit. Now, if you're working on just kind of regular paper, you might notice, and you're using sort of watery paste, you might notice your paper kind of start to kind of fold and, crinkle a little bit. Actually, I want that over here, I think. I don't know exactly where it was, but that's okay. This is just my first layer, so I'm just kind of getting the bases down. So yeah, if you're using just sort of a regular, printer paper, your paper might start to kind of, if you have too much water on it, it might start to kind of get very, very soppy and kind of like tear. So I'd suggest if you're using just sort of regular printer paper, maybe use a glue stick or the white glue and less water, not very much water. Okay, so now I have a little bit of this space is kind of bothering me a little bit over here. So I think what I'm going to do is use this one, a smaller version of it. So as you're going, I put my first three kind of big squares on. You can kind of, look at it as you're going and see, this spot needs a little more, balance. So right now it kind of looks like I've just chopped off part of the picture. So I want to add a little more balance in there. So I'm going to put this one up here. I think that might help balance things out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit for a little bit. My brush, I'm going to stick it in the water for now. And now what I'm going to do is start thinking about smaller details and pieces. So I've gone through my magazines a little bit. I've taken out pages or pieces that are mostly blue, a little bit not blue, but I want it to sort of match with what I'm already working. Let's see if I can tilt that down a little more. Hopefully that's you can see that. I'll move my light a little bit as well. So I'm going to use the scissors for this one. And for here, I've got mostly very straight lines. So I think I might experiment a little bit with doing kind of a curved line, kind of mix things up a little bit. Okay, that's really big. So I think I might make it a little bit smaller by sort of chopping a little piece out like this. So on my next sort of layer, I'm going to be thinking mostly a little more detail and detailed pieces and sort of more medium sized. Okay, so the first one I was using very, very large stuff, and now I'm going to use more medium stuff. Now I've cut these. Actually, what I might do is kind of glue them. I'm going to glue this one kind of right there. And my piece that I cut out of that, I'm actually going to put it, like normally it would go there, but I'm going to sort of drag it back here so you can still kind of see. You can see where it came from, right? Now at the moment, ooh, that's kind of cool. So there's, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little sort of sliver of blue that when I cut this apart, it sort of just landed there. So I'm going to actually keep that there. It's a nice little touch. It's looking a little bit sort of sloppy just because of all that white paste. But like I said, when it dries, it'll all dry kind of clear. Let's see, I'm going to do something. I've gotten a lot of blue stuff on there, so I'm going to do something a little bit different now to get a little bit of contrast. I've got lots of dark colors, so I'm going to do something really, really light. Let's see what we got over here. Pile of paper is turning into a bit of a mess. Okay, so I've got this paper. I actually use this paper to sort of test markers on, but I'm not going to recycle it. I'm going to use it for this. I'm going to cut this into some thin kind of lines. I'm going to do a couple of those. And I'm also going to use this this tracing paper because it's, you can kind of see through it. It's going to sort of dull down things a little bit. Cut that into a thinner piece of thing. Another thing that you can do to get a little more texture on it is you can fold some of your paper. So I've got this here. I'm going to fold it maybe in half-ish. Maybe part of it I will kind of tear and fold back. Maybe this end I'll kind of fold into a point. So when you're making collage, I mean, if you want things to be super, nice and organized and very flat, you can absolutely do that. But you can also go with something sort of standing up off of the thing, so that you can see now it has a bit of a texture to it. I'm going to put that right about there. Put some glue down there. Stick that in. Like so. There we go. And let's see, maybe I need something like that. Similar to it, but a little bit wider. Up here. So as you can see, I'm going pretty monochromatic. I don't know if I mentioned that was kind of a bit of my goal earlier today. I can't remember if I said that or not, but I said I was focusing mostly on shapes and colors, and by going monochromatic, which means one color, I mean, there's more than just blue in here. There's some black and white, and there's some green and even some like brown, I guess. So there is a couple of different colors, but the main color is blue, and I'm focusing around different shades of blue. That's trying to get away from me. There we go. So now I've got some sort of textured pieces up here. Because of how thin the paper is, it's actually going to be sort of drying in a bit of a ripple, which gives kind of a neat texture to that as well. And my last layer, so I've done 2 layers. I've done very large pieces. Then I've done very sort of small pieces. My last layer is going to be even smaller. So the most detailed parts that I can get. So shapes and things are going to be smaller. So I've got this. Maybe I'll cut this up into even smaller pieces. And, you know, maybe these will go nicely kind of along there. It's kind of like sprinkled along there. Now I've noticed that I can't actually see the comments from where I'm sitting. I hope it's been working, and I hope that it's been on, and that you've been able to sort of chat with each other. Unfortunately, like I said, I can't see it. So if you had any questions, I can't answer them right now, but you can ask questions still in the comments. There should be 1 or 2 of my lovely coworkers hanging out in the comments in the live chat there, who would probably be able to answer some questions. Otherwise, I can take a look at it. Afterwards. All right, maybe I'll put. I'm going to leave that for now. Getting a little busy with the blue. Now I'm going to show you how to do the packing tape thing. We've waited this long. I think now's the time. So what you're going to do, this works best with things from a magazine. And what you end up with is something like this with the picture or something transferred onto the tape. So I'm going to move this to the side just for a moment, just so it can dry. And I've got a little bit of space. So I've got some stuff here. These are from some magazines. And I'm going to take my tape. Packing tape I like to use because it's wider. Regular clear tape works just as fine, actually. I just actually tested it right before we went live. Just thinking, hey, I wonder if this works. And it actually works pretty all right. So if you don't have packing tape, you can just use regular tape. Okay, that's getting all stuck together, so that's fun. There we go. Okay, so you've got your picture that you want to be lifted facing sort of on the tape. The tape is on there, and then this is just the other side. And I'm going to put this in my bowl of water. Just dip it in there. Let it rest there for a minute. I've got a few others here. This one has some text on it. I actually meant to do that picture, but I put the tape on the wrong side. So I'm going to put that in as well. Get rid of that. And you can also use these with like color comes off also. Done with that. All right, so I've waited a couple of seconds here. I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to leave that one in, and I'm going to put this one in also. This one's probably ready. So what you're going to do now is you can use your finger or you can use a cloth or something, and you're going to be kind of rubbing and rolling the paper right off the tape. And what's happening is because of the water and the stickiness, the ink from the magazine or newspaper, or even like some book pages, depending on what it is, will work to a different level of effectiveness. The paper kind of peels off, and you have this gross thing of pulp, and you're left with a piece of tape with some transparent text on it. I'm going to do that with this one now. I find that magazines actually work kind of the best with this. You don't want something like a super glossy magazine because, well, I'm not sure why, but it's just tougher. And there you have it. Here, I'll put a piece of, so you can see that on there. So now I'm going to put these on, I'm going to bring my, my collage back. You can see it's already kind of, in the black areas, it's starting to dry. It's starting to dry black. And now I'm going to start putting some of this stuff in a few spots. Now, these are really, really small. I think they're going to get lost in this a little bit. So I might actually go to, this is a smaller one that I was working on. I'm going to shift over to this one so that you can kind of see it a little more clearly. I've done a couple already, and I've put, I've got some different colors of paper down there. And now I'm going to start gluing this on. So I'm gluing this stuff on. Actually, I'm going to put this one over here. I'm gluing these on just the same as I would a piece of paper. Put a little bit over top of that. And the neat thing about this is that you can still see the color and the texture underneath that that you already put down. So you're layering things over top, but you're not losing anything that you've already done. Put this kind of on top. And there you have that. So that gives a kind of a neat effect. I think it's a neat little trick that you can try. I didn't get to putting any sort of fabric or string or anything like that. I might work on that in a little bit, but it looks like we're almost out of time. So I'm going to wrap it up. So here is the work that we've been working on today. I'm a little happier with this smaller one. I was kind of going really quickly with this one and also kind of working upside down, which also reminds me a nice thing that you can do while you're working on collage. So I was working on it this way. That's the way I was looking at it. But if you feel like you're ever kind of stuck, you can just rotate your collage this way. And then, see if that looks any different, or if you can sort of, it might give you a little more inspiration, or you can rotate it even this way, or even more. Rotate it around, look at it upside down, getting a bit of a different perspective on your work can really help. So that is our project for today. I'm very, very grateful that you could all join us here in your homes. And I hope to see you all again next week. If you have made something, or if you're going to make something and you'd like to share it with us, please do. You can send it to, or you can post it on Facebook or Instagram, and tag us and use our hashtag AGH at home, and then we can share it on our social media so that all of our friends can see your wonderful artwork. So yeah, that's all for today, folks. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.